Good morning, church family. Man, it's so good to be able to come to you this morning, to be able to bring you the message for the week, but this is clearly under unique circumstances because if you're watching this video, it means that we've all been snowed in or maybe iced in. It depends on the forecast and who was right. And so with all that being said, I've got some help this morning. It's not going to be a traditional me standing in front of a table and just preaching to a camera, but I've invited Stephen Williams and Pat Gillen, two of our pastors, to join me in having a conversation about this message, the next message that was in our series, Culture Wars, and so we'll get to that in just a minute. But I wanted to start just by kind of offering a little bit of update and give some news that's pretty exciting. Just this past Wednesday night, we had a church-wide vote, online voting, and church conference in person, all together affirming the three-part recommendation that was related to both the Haywood and Five Forks campuses, and so that's super exciting. 99% of the vote went to the affirmative in regards to the sale of the property and relocation of Haywood campus. But then also about 97% for the second and third part of the recommendation, and that would be the reallocation of funds from Haywood to Five Forks, going to begin the construction of the Five Forks campus, which is exciting, going to get that moving quickly. And then also the third part of that was to go ahead and pre-approve the funding of a permanent facility for Haywood after 3 years in a temporary venue. So, hey, guys, I mean, what do y'all think about kind of the news of just the future direction and how God's provided in the midst of kind of terrible circumstances of a roof collapsing?
Absolutely, but it's been exciting to see how God's hand's moving and providing for immediate needs and also kind of lifting the lid for the future of growth. It's awesome.
Yeah. And even, Stephen, what do you think about, like, I know what we've seen, it's kind of unprecedented, anything I've ever seen, but like Haywood started 2.5 years ago, 150, 170 people, and to reach 700 and launch a campus out of it. I mean, right now they're averaging together, Greenville and Haywood, right at 900 a week. Sky's the limit, I know, but what are you dreaming about could happen at if it was Greenville Convention Center, for instance, where they worshiped for 3 years at Haywood?
Oh, yeah. Well, what has happened is it's almost immediate. So when everyone starts to go to Haywood, and then you say, okay, everybody's going to Greenville, there's going to be a Sunday off. But immediately, there's more. So when you hit Greenville, there's almost the expectation that first Sunday is going to automatically be more. You don't know where the people are coming from.
Right.
And it's like, did 500 people go out and invite more? But it just happens. So it really is God just doing something special that I think He could continue to do and will continue to do everywhere we go.
Yeah. And speaking of everywhere, real quickly, I'm just going to go through these because people will be watching from all the different locations. So I know if you go to upstatechurch.org, you can see the list. But man, we're grateful for the folks watching from Anderson, from Five Forks, from Fountain Inn, where Pat is our teaching pastor there. You want to give us a little bit of an update what God's doing there?
Oh, man, it's been incredible. Last year, we baptized 22 people at Fountain Inn campus, which is awesome. First full year. We started really after Hurricane Helene, was supposed to be our first Sunday. So
it's two bookends, right?
yeah. We went from Helene to Ice Storm so far. But, yeah, it's been exciting to see God working there at the Yount Center.
Similar kind of thing like the core group, and then compared to what you're averaging now, it's really just unreal how God multiplies.
It's so cool, and we got plenty of space to continue to grow,
true.
and so we continue to grow. Our student ministry is needing more space, and we need more space for groups, and we've got more people that need to be in groups, so it's exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We mentioned Haywood a minute ago. Well, out of Haywood, we planted Greenville. A soft launch was at the end of the year. Their first official day as a campus was first Sunday in January. But again, they're running 180, 190 on Sunday mornings. Really great. Hayden is doing a fantastic job there. Harrison Bridge, of course, we just in a transition right now. Josh Bradley doing a great job. You want to kind of give everybody an update as far as Harrison Bridge?
everybody that's there when we go in there has a positive attitude. Core groups, just everybody's looking forward to seeing what God does. Josh is doing an amazing job with preaching and leading, and everybody just keeps coming back. Usually when the transition happens, people just kind of fall off or go somewhere else.
Right.
But it's just staying consistent and really exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, shout out to Malden campus, those watching. And then Simpsonville, of course, Stephen Williams is our Simpsonville hub pastor. And some people remember, what in the world's a hub pastor? Stephen, tell them a little bit about what you do as far as just kind of the mentoring aspect of a lot of our teaching team, and then also like the campuses in the Simpsonville hub and your responsibilities.
Yeah, mostly it's just meeting with the pastors, the campus pastors, and just once every 2 weeks or once a month, and just walk with them through just the things that's going on the campus, and just seeing what comes out from the leadership team and what we are looking for as far as like attendance and baptisms, and just seeing if everything's good with them, and then just seeing what in the Simpsonville hub for midweek. How that everybody in the hub can meet at Simpsonville and have the space and everything that they need. And really, it is fantastic to work with all of the people, the campus pastors, then the CLMs and everybody else, where everybody's all-stars. So really, it's just meeting with them and saying, hey, y'all good? Yep, we're good. Okay.
Stephen, also a lot of what you do is encourage the young guys. And so we hadn't mentioned Lauren's gathering. Thomas Helms, and then also Union Gathering. That's where Stephen Cutchins has been transitional pastor, and Trace Wingard has been our associate gathering pastor. Really, Trace segueing into more of a key role in leadership. Pouring into those young guys. How much of that part of your responsibility kind of do you thrive on? Because I feel like that's your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I love that. It's going into a place and seeing all the potential of what I say potential. All of the people that are lost. And how can we reach them? So there's USC Union, and then the high school, and then just all around the community. So just helping Trace see that, and then figuring out how he's going to operate. And so he is, and keeping encouraged too, out in an hour away. And then every week, Trace, as he preaches and as he ministers, he sees things happening, even at the smallest. When we think about Simpsonville as how large it is, and Harrison Bridge and all the other things, Union having 50 people, but they did have 20.
Right.
And
And
every
they had
single
100 the other week.
Right.
and I was going to say, yeah.
Crazy.
So, and they've baptized every month for the last 5 months, and then had 100 Sundays. So God just getting to the spot where Union's being reached, and then with Lawrence, just they're continuing hitting a lid even with facilities, because they just growing from what was it in the 70s first of last year to now over 200.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, I think just starting everything with that, the whole concept and idea of knowing that today our church is worshiping together. As much as, we don't really love the idea of not having opportunity to be face-to-face in our local church setting where we're, it's an irreplaceable part of being part of a church is to be in person. But the cool thing about when we do have these opportunities, we're speaking to the whole at one time. And so just, from our heart, as three pastors that represent kind of the teaching team today, I feel like our people need to hear there's not one location that's less important than the other.
That's good.
Every gathering, every campus matters. And we pull together. I think this whole Haywood and Five Forks vote's a great example, probably the greatest example so far of how we really are one church. There's no separation of value. Whatever the need is, we pull together to meet it.
Which is a greater mission too, than just in one community. God's given us a mission to reach the entire upstate in the world.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. We've been in Encounter, this new initiative, really now just for really under a week, a few weeks now, under a month, a few weeks now. So, starting a series with Culture Wars kind of carries with it a lot of maybe presuppositions. What is this going to be about? Even maybe the way I would have preached a series called Culture Wars 10 years ago would be different than I'd do it today. Same content, probably different tone. maybe,
Right.
So far, how have y'all felt about just Encounter in general? Even we were talking about the new year and midweek, things that God seems to be stirring in our church and just the momentum. Some of that, I believe, you were talking about even staff worship. So y'all share those things that kind of through the lens of Encounter and wanting God to move, wanting God to work, not just on Sunday mornings, but in our church and through our people on a daily basis. Share
Well,
with us.
I think people are hungry for clarity and they want to know what God has to say. And we've lived in kind of this culture for a while where we've tried to obfuscate the truth because we don't want to hurt feelings. And I think we really have to get to the point where what does God have to say for us? That actually brings life to us.
Yeah.
That actually directs us. So I think starting this year, people are hungry for God, and actually culture wars is allowing us to address some issues and some challenges that oftentimes we've let other people define.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I know the next generation's hungry because we had just 2 Wednesdays ago, we had 500 teenagers in Simpsonville alone.
That's crazy.
Between all 3 midweek locations, it was like 560 students, which is incredible. 250 kids through 3 different midweeks. So I know the next generation is hungry, and that's just 18 and under that was here. That's not counting the adults that were in small groups that are learning and growing, the equipping you groups that are happening on midweek time. So Sunday mornings people expect to go to church, but Wednesday after work and you're tired and you're hungry
Right.
and it's rainy, that's a pretty incredible thing to see see there.
And I don't know if y'all felt the same way, but the service time change. We mentioned this on a podcast, I think. But service time changes when we change everything 8:30 and 11:30. I would have thought that might have been a little negative.
Yeah.
Possibly hurt. Everything went crazy. Like it's been better.
That's awesome.
I feel like that's pretty much across the board. And so that really is kind of it speaks to that hunger. I feel
That's
like
right.
people are just wanting more.
Yeah, I was going to say the next generation, I think it was kind of birthed somewhat out of the heart of Will Bray and Dallas Wilson, and I know that y'all have talked about it, but just them being a part of the next generation and just a hunger. It's not really necessarily that they need to have a hunger. It's how do we do this? And so with the residents and all the young guys, they are so excited. So when they go to our teaching team or total team encounter services, they're the ones up front and just enjoying every bit of it and just really hungry. And so what it's doing is it's getting to the old guys, which we're not old, but we are older than them, and really lighting a fire. And it's beautiful to see because God's not finished.
Yeah.
If the next generation is catching fire, God's not finished. And so taking these 2 years to kind of set that standard and set that forward, I think is great.
We've all seen and shared in churches that are struggling and aren't seeing God move and haven't seen people baptized or haven't seen life change. And I love that we're in a place that we see life change happen literally every day.
Yeah.
Another conversation of somebody who's surrendered to the Lord or a marriage that's been restored. It's been incredible.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of that is just the consistent surrender. You know, it's not just staff. I mean, our people want what God has for them. And I'm not saying that churches that struggle, churches that suffer, don't want that, but it is oftentimes about consistent obedience and not hesitating. But when God leads, step.
Hunger and obedience.
Yeah. So, hey, that's kind of a good segue into this whole idea of culture war. So we started first of the year in a series of culture wars. We started in an unlikely place, Romans chapter 12. And I'm sure everybody, all our teaching pastors, at least communicated a similar message because we all agree on the text and the major points. But that seemed for me an odd place to start initially until we really started studying through it and getting the idea of, getting the framework right. Basically this whole idea of Romans 12, 1 and 2, not being conformed to the world, but being transformed by the renewing of your minds, being the starting point for cultural engagement. Because the problem I have witnessed, and I think now hindsight's 2020, is confrontation without transformation is ineffective. There's no way that I can effectively engage a culture in the name of Christ as an ambassador of Christ until I actually have the mind of Christ.
Yep.
So that was kind of it makes sense now, Romans 12, 1 and 2 is a great starting point. But we spent 2 weeks kind of getting our heart ready. The second week was about apathy. And Romans 12, 13 through 16 I think it was saying, don't be slothful in zeal was the terminology, which is always a little bit strange.
Right.
But, that whole idea of, again, more of a foundational, motivational part of preparing your heart for engagement. Would y'all say, is that how y'all presented it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we are in a culture that just values apathy, and we need to not have that attitude toward the Lord.
Yeah.
We need to be excited and zealous for Him, for sure.
Is there anything that stood out the first couple weeks to you, Stephen?
Yeah, it almost set the foundation. The first sermon was getting your theology right. So you're a heart of transformation where it's a heart of Christ. And then the second one was your attitude. So we can have the right theology and the wrong attitude.
True.
Or a right attitude and the wrong theology. So we need to get both of them right. So I think it was good to have those two messages to start with.
And then the first issue we dealt with last week was Sanctity of Human Life Sunday, and so it was a fitting time. We actually reordered our sermons to fit that schedule, which I think was fitting. It was really good. But interestingly enough, it felt like for the first time we were in the series. I know that sounds odd, but because it is like a cultural issue that we know not everybody agrees on. I do feel like from everything I've heard, man, that the people responded well. The teaching pastors hit the right tone of truth and grace, recognizing that the scriptures are the scriptures. We speak the truth, but how we communicate that truth matters. And so I love that. We'll not spend more time elaborating on that issue, but I do think that was a good first issue or topic to talk about. This week, the subject matter is on work, of all things. And that, again, almost may be a little bit of a sidestep, and some people may say, well, what in the world does work have to do with cultural engagement? And so this idea of not just work, but seeing work as worship to God. And so before we dive into that, what's your initial thoughts on the idea of work and cultural engagement? How does it fit?
I think work, the way we see work, because we do so much of it and it's supposed to, that it would probably govern how we operate in society. So if if somebody's going to be an electrician, how they treat their customers, how they do the work itself, and all that they are doing has to have the right framework. It has to have a Christ-centered framework as worship, or it won't be done the way it's supposed to be done. So it's definitely part of culture.
2 Corinthians 5 says we're ambassadors, but I think we usually think of that, we're representatives of Christ. We think evangelism, missions.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is this ambassador thing applies to every part of our life.
Well, and then what's the first question you ask when you meet somebody after you get to know their name? Well, what do you do?
What do you do?
Yeah.
Right. And so much of your
At least
identity
men.
is, that's right. That's right. But I mean, so much of your identity is caught up in what you do. And I think there's an unhealthy aggression we can take toward work where it becomes such a big part of our lives that it replaces the reminder for us that God has actually placed us here to work hard as worship for Him, keeping Him at the centerpiece. That's so good. Just like what you said.
So the first passage that came to my mind is not a passage that is the primary text. But when Amy and I were even talking work as worship, she literally said, was that 1 Corinthians 10:31? Is that what y'all are going to talk about? Is that your primary? And I was like, no, it's actually not. But here's what 1 Corinthians 10:31 says that I think is super relevant to everything we'll talk about. Paul says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God.
That's good.
I do think that is the heart of what we're going to talk about for the next 45 minutes is kind of this heart of, when you're transformed by the renewing of your mind, being sanctified in the likeness of Christ, it changes your actions, not just your intellect. It doesn't just change what you believe. It actually changes how you live it out. And if that's the case, then it doesn't matter if you're at a restaurant eating. It doesn't matter if you're asleep at home. It doesn't matter if you're working in your occupation. You are representing Christ.
It's a worldview shift, right?
It major.
Yeah.
It's all consuming. Yeah. So I do think in a weird way, it's crazy that I even question, does work as worship fit cultural engagement? Because again, it's almost that foundational part of our identity that leads into how we're going to.
And our entrance into the world in many ways.
Yeah.
Well, if you imagine if the whole world worked like they hated it, like we're coming to retirement, we got to get done, and their attitude stinks. Imagine how terrible society would operate, right?
It feels that way sometimes.
Yeah, it does. So there has to be a genuine Christ-centered view on work, or everything's going to collapse.
I mean, just think about how many times you see somebody at work and they're miserable.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like miserable.
Yeah,
It's frequent, right?
I went to the DMV the other day and was
yeah.
in and out in 10 minutes, and I was like, this is the craziest experience I've ever had. It's usually the exact opposite of this, right?
I mean, I had to go to the hospital for a very minor procedure. Nobody get upset or anything, but it was I was there. The thing that stuck out to me, made me think about it a second ago, is how nice everybody was. And this is what's bad in our day, is when people seem to enjoy what they're doing as an occupation and they're kind to other people. It's odd.
It feels unusual. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because the norm is I'm miserable. I'm having to do this. I'm enduring.
I'm getting through the day for
Yeah.
the weekend.
Yeah. So I think that's what we, as a Christian, should never
Right.
communicate.
And I know that we're going to get into this, but it takes away such a massive opportunity for Christ when we don't treat work as worship.
Yeah.
Because we're working most of the time.
That's
and
right.
so if we take that away, then we're taking away a massive opportunity to witness.
That's right.
When you look culturally, who were the people we looked up to when we were kids that we wanted to be? Policemen, firemen, right? Teachers. Now, what is the next generation? Who are they looking up to? It's influencers or streamers.
Right.
It's a different value of work that we have in this world today than
true.
we used to have. And that's not to say that we had it right 100%, but it has changed.
Yeah, and I think, Amy, even this afternoon when we were talking about it, she said a word that I think does encapsulate what you're talking about, and it shifted. It started with I'll say my generation. I'm older than y'all a little bit, just a tiny bit. But generationally, maybe we're in similar categories, but I would say it started with my age group, but it's definitely gotten worse, and that is entitlement. The idea of I'm entitled.
Absolutely.
Most of the world's problems right this minute are centered around a sin of pride that is realized in this idea of entitlement. Yeah, you owe me something.
Yeah.
Everyone owes me. I deserve this. And which is the opposite of a recognition of our total bankruptcy spiritually and need of
Absolutely.
Jesus.
That's right. That's right.
So, hey, let me read this real quickly. I'm going to read a portion of Genesis chapter 1, chapter 2, and then just going to spend the next little bit talking about the points that our teaching pastors had kind of established, and we'll walk through it. But verse 24, Genesis chapter 1, verse 24, here's what it says. And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth according to their kinds. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. This is that really subject from last week, talking about the value of life. We're made in the image of God. And he said, let them have dominion, a key word there, dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, over the livestock, over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Verse 27, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them, and God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. And here it is again, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, behold, I've given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. Kind of another piece of this dominion and subduing it. Verse 30, and to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the heavens, and everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for you. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Then chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens of the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God finished his work. Notice he had been working. He finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. So two words jumped out to me just reading that. and those are subdue and dominion. There's a lot of other things to talk about in it, but the idea of subduing something and having dominion over it, I just kind of did word studies real quick to see the idea of kind of a consistency of to conquer, to force, to keep under. It's this idea of control for sure. To keep under, to bring into subjection. So the words that were spoken from God about Adam, mankind in general, is that there's this combination of subdue and dominion that emphasizes a responsibility to manage and cultivate. Now, here's the thing: we're not gardeners, and so I think we're not in the Garden of Eden. So maybe sometimes it's easy to read chapter 1 and 2 of Genesis and separate ourselves from it because, hey, Wayne, I work at Starbucks or whatever. My job's not that. So how does that apply to me? What does subdue and have dominion mean to me? And before we even get into some of that, I think if we're thinking about work as worship, the first thing that jumped out to me more than anything is that God actually did the work first. I think it'd be easy for us to even admit, even in our lives, God works first. God is the initiator. In philosophy of religion or apologetics, he's the prime mover.
Yeah.
He's the causeless cause in creation. We know all those things. But how is he first? How does he work first every day? I mean, how does anything come to your mind in relationship to, sometimes we think of it as being, I have the obligation, I carry the burden, but God is the one who initiates work.
I think we think of work as a benefit, or excuse me, a problem of sin. Sin created work, and yet this is actually something God gave Adam before all that, right? It's a blessing.
So work existed before sin.
That's right. It probably got harder after sin.
Yeah,
obviously,
right.
that's described, right?
Had to have.
Certainly more weeds in the garden after the sin. But I think it's a reminder to us that God is actually saying he wants us to model what he has modeled for us first. He's still working. And when we're not working as worship, when we don't realize God has placed us here in this place to have an influence for his kingdom's sake, we've kind of missed that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think we look at work as a burden when we should look at it as a delight.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, work is not a curse. If it's going to be before the curse, it's not a curse. It's a partnership.
That's good.
It's like if God's gonna work and then he hands something over to us, it doesn't mean that he can't do the work, so we're going to take it over.
Yeah.
It just means that I want you to be a part of what I'm doing.
And I even thought, man, so this is pre-ice storm. So when we're recording this, I've been pouring gas all day, pumping, getting cans full. I've been working, man. So I have a generator that's a push button start. It's gonna so I have the easy button lazy man's generator. My father-in-law's, Tom Rooker helped me get that thing going this morning, but it's a pull start and all that, and it reminded me of this idea. I think we can sometimes settle into the idea of work as disengaged. I don't know if that's going to make sense, but pressing the button. We want the easy button. What's that office supply store? We want the easy button work, but I want you to think about how God is described in Genesis 1 and 2. So God didn't just speak stuff into existence. He did that to some degree, but he designed everything. He organized. He's a God of order. He's not just a guy of spoken word and poof. It even describes that some people, I would say definitely of more theologically liberal persuasion, would say that the story of God and the intimacy of his creating Adam from the dust of the ground is just a romantic picture of what happened. I believe God got in the dirt, man.
Right.
And I think that it shows the intimacy, the intricacy, and the detailed involvement, the delight of his work. What comes to your mind, Steve?
Oh, the Genesis 1, when we think of work, our first thought is, I need to find where I'm stopped working. Where's
When do I get
retirement?
off?
When is it time? And then you start to read the Bible, and the very first thing you see is God working.
Right.
So that's the very thing. And then Genesis chapter 1 in literary form is polysyndeton. So
that's an impressive word.
Yeah. So polysyndeton is basically a literary structure where the conjunction "and" is used a lot, and it's for emphasis, and it's used unnecessarily. Like you could do something, but it's used so that you can show order and that it's very important. So it's and he made, and he said, and he. So of all the ands, God is referenced more than 30 times.
Wow.
And every single time it's him doing something. It's him talking or him, it's very good or whatever it is in the reference. And for us, we are mentioned very few, humanity, and it's what he has done with us. So it's really showing that the work started with God and that it is very important that we see that God was working all the way through the beginning. And
Wow.
in any other literary form, it would be obnoxious if I were to sit here and go and. But in this, it's like an emphasis, like
Yeah.
God did
Builds
this,
on
and
top.
he did this, and he did this. And by the way, he did the stars too. So
And it reminds us of something we say all the time, and that is that man's not the centerpiece
Yeah.
of the gospel.
Right.
God is.
yeah.
You know?
Well, you mentioned the easy button. I think we're looking for work to define our worth. We're trying to find our worth in what we've done with our own hands. And the centerpiece of the gospel is you can never do enough on your own to ever measure up.
Right.
You can never be good enough. You can never be smart enough. You can never work hard enough. But Jesus has done that work for us. And so the beauty of the gospel is we work heartily for the Lord. I pulled up Colossians 3:23, 24. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord, not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive an inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Jesus Christ. It changes our perspective to not work for our worth, but realize Jesus has provided
Yeah.
that worth for us.
Yeah.
So we're working for him. We're working just to bring him glory.
Yeah, because the tendency would be, oh, well, hey, if God's done all the work, then I can chill.
Yeah, I can sit back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So what you're saying is we're not working for it, but we're working from it. We're working from his work, and really, ultimately, he's the one working even through us.
Right, exactly.
In a lot of ways.
So if you were to connect that with culture, so our cultural mind, if it is that I need to work to retire, work to stop, then what's happening is the entitlements coming through, and then what can this world do for me? So I'm going to work for this world or in this world so that I can receive back from it. And the opposite of that is what y'all were saying is the reason I'm working and God gave it to me is so that I can contribute to this world and I can make it better. And even towards the gospel that I can lead others to Christ through what God has given me in work.
I don't think any of us are against retirement, so I don't think
No,
we want to go on the
right.
record saying that. But I do
said that
think
2 or 3 times. But
I do think-
no, I want to retire at some point, right? Yeah.
I do think we want to redirect. Instead of retire, we need to think, how can we redirect
Yeah.
the work that God's called me to? I hear people all the time that will say, well, I've paid my dues already. I've already served. I've been serving the church for this many years. It's time for the church to serve me. And we do. So entitlement exists in every
Yes.
generation. And I think there's a time for us to say, how can we redirect our ministry? It may not look the same in the work that we do, but when we retire one day, we're going to have more time on our hands to be able to
Sure.
disciple and impact more people.
And there are people, we won't name any, but I mean, there are people who that's clearly happened.
Oh,
like
yeah.
they almost look toward retirement so they can give God more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
true.
it always blesses me when I hear people say that. Well, I'm hoping, once I retire, it's going to open up just a lot more
Yeah.
opportunity for me to go on mission,
Be
to
available
serve.
and
Yeah.
travel
Yeah.
and
So that's pretty cool.
mission trips.
Well, let's dive into these three. These are 3 points that we have established as a teaching team. For those who don't know, we kind of work together way ahead, months ahead, to establish these kind of ideas, divisions in the text, and so forth, so on. But I framed it like this: 3 outcomes. I have to have a keyword. All right. So if there are 3 outcomes of a believer's faith when he or she embraces work as worship, what would those outcomes be? And in a way, you could say this first one's kind of like, well, what does my work for God look like? If I'm not a preacher, if I'm not, I don't work, I'm not on staff for the church. So how does my work fit the mission of God? So that first idea is we work for God's mission. And I think it starts with this whole idea of humans being created as workers for a mission and a kingdom, not as consumers. And man, we all face that. We all definitely have many times. Maybe we've been guilty of it if we're not careful. We have a consumeristic culture. We mentioned that a minute ago. It's all about me. It's a self-serving ideology. Our iPhones are iPhones, right? I mean, it's all about us. So how do we fight against that and come to this realization of our whole purpose is not to please ourselves as consumers, but to actually please the Lord through our work.
Well, Adam wasn't a preacher either, right?
That's a good point.
I mean, if he was, he's preaching to his wife. That's pretty much, I guess, his kids.
She might have been
at that point. But Adam wasn't a preacher, but inherited this work from the Lord. I think what we have to realize is this is something God's given us.
Yeah.
It's a tool He's given us, and it's a tool for His mission's sake, right? So I know this is a crazy thing to say, but if you hired a Christian at your place of employment, you should have no doubt that that's the hardest working person that you hired.
That should be the assumption.
That should be the assumption, right? It should be that if a Christian is on your team, you can know that that Christian is going to follow through with what they say they're going to do. They're going to show up on time. They're going to end when they're supposed to end. And I don't know that that's always true of us. And I think when we start to say work should be as worship, it changes that mindset to go, our mission is not just clocking in for this company on Monday morning. It's that God is actually allowing me to be salt and light in this place for His kingdom's sake. The mission is greater than earning a paycheck. The mission is greater than providing for my family. It's also the kingdom of God. And that's essentially what I think Adam sees too, right?
Yeah.
We never stop representing.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
We're always a representative.
This isn't a Sunday
Right.
faith. It's an everyday faith.
I think that it's that we get in the mindset of either or. So when we think about this, I do think that we should think about retirement. We should think about our making money so we can be fed.
We're pro-retirement here.
Yeah, we're pro-retirement. I got to say it. But on the other hand, we should also think of it as unto God. So it's not either or. We're not spiritual on Sunday and secular on Monday. It should be that everything that we do is unto the Lord, but it's also unto the Lord for the creation, in the creation. So there has to be a balance in that. One thing I was thinking about in the text that I noticed is the emphasis in the text is that God does the extraordinary. He made all the earth. He made the heavens. He made all of that. And Adam does the ordinary. He names the animals. And he said, replenish the earth. All of those things are ordinary. So it means this is that God is in charge of the extraordinary, not us. But He has made us partners to be partners in the ordinary. So when we talk about ordinary, it would be the everyday life. That's part of God's work, is the everyday life.
Such an easy thing to grasp, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't think about it until you said that. But listen, I mean, God doesn't call Adam to do anything Adam can't do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's right.
I've never thought about that. I mean, he didn't ask Adam to do God stuff.
No, that's God's business.
And the reality is we're all called to ministry.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
Every single believer,
Absolutely.
is called to ministry. It may look different. You may be an attorney. You may be, picking up trash on the side of the road. I don't know, but we're all called to ministry and doing what we're doing for the kingdom of God. So I think that's appropriate.
How much does last week's message, and I know it was exclusively about sanctity of life and defense of the lives of unborn babies, certainly, and the vulnerable in other cases too. We talked about much more than just abortion, but how much does being an image bearer have to do with our responsibility to work with excellence?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people see us, they're waiting for us to fail as Christians. They want to be able to point to a Christian and say, see, I told you, this is not real. This is not right.
Yeah.
When we aren't realizing that God has created us to be image bearers to the world, to recognize that we are representing Christ to the world, when we miss that in our jobs, we're actually speaking ill of the gospel in a way. I mean, we're not leading and living in such a way that leads people to the kingdom.
Yeah.
I think if we view work as worship unto the Lord for the glory of God, however you want to state it, that our work is viewed in a Christian perspective, then we will have no danger of treating people the way that we preached about last week. Because if you work that way, then you're going to choose the work that God wants you to have. You're not going to choose the work that would be harmful to society.
Yeah.
And then the way you treat them in the work that you do is not going to be abusive, and it's going to be right. So they both connect.
I had written down a statement that I didn't know you were going to say this about, the whole idea of, and I rephrased it. God didn't call Adam to do God stuff, but I think that's so true with this. Our responsibility is not to replace God, but to represent God. And that's everything we've been saying in this first point, is as we're on mission to God, for God. We're not trying. God's not called us to do stuff we can't do, and He's not calling us to do anything, even in our workplace, that's not reasonable. From a person who's had a renewed mind,
Right.
after a transformed life. And so our responsibility is not to replace God, but to represent Him. Let's go to the second thing real quick. So we talked about we work for God's mission, but the second outcome is that we work as God's stewards. And all these things are overlapping. I think that a lot of times when we have our 3 points or 2 points, that they're very related, similar points. But in chapter 2, verse 15 in particular, here's what Genesis says. God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. And so he was to, going back to those 2 words we mentioned earlier, he was to steward it. Right. Like his responsibility, if you wanted to just encapsulate in one word, God called Adam to steward the garden well. Chapter 2, verse 15, really important, pre-sin. Pre-fall. Mm-hmm. Adam has not sinned. Nobody's eaten fruit yet.
Yeah.
But work is present in the garden. There's a task to be done, even in a perfect world. Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy? Because I think you're right earlier when you said, I think we often look at work as almost like punishment or burden to bear, not an opportunity. And so work happens before the fall. It's not a curse. You said that earlier. Right. It's not a curse. This was a holy work in a perfect world. And so with that in mind, what would you say, how does that change our outlook of work when we think about it as we're stewarding this responsibility or this opportunity God's given us in a everyday job? Let's say if it's working in a restaurant or I'm a nurse in a hospital. I mean, how do we look at that as I'm stewarding that?
It makes it matter. It's like what I'm doing matters. So at the end of the day, I'm having an eternal impact on somebody. And if it doesn't matter, then you get through with the day. It's like, oh, good, I'm glad that's over. and then you go home and kind of recover from the day and then go back. But and days are hard like that. And we do have days like that. But if we look at it as a whole and making an eternal impact, it does change our perspective in saying that it matters for me to get up this morning and go to work. And even if I'm going to work because of my family. I'm going to work because my coworker needs an example, or I'm going to work whatever reason it is, but it matters.
Well, John Piper had a famous sermon, "Don't Waste Your Life," that really kind of encapsulated this idea, right? And I think it has to do with ultimately our drive and our identity and who Christ is. That if we're looking forward to retirement so that we can pull out of any kind of spiritual responsibility and stewardship that God's given us, then we've actually missed exactly what He's placed us on this earth for. And so I think that's why we say, let's redirect that attention. But if we lose our job and we lose our identity with it, then we have realized that job has been the idol. And so the challenge for us is that, yes, we can work too hard and focus on our work, or we can be too lazy. What we really have to do is capture that mindset to say, God has given me these gifts and this place and this ability to steward well and to be a light for His name, like in the world around us, to glorify Him, whether we eat or drink or whatever we do, that He would be at the center of our lives. And I think that John Piper's sermon, which is an incredible sermon to go check out, puts in perspective the fact that when your life is centered, your identity is centered around, this is my goal. This is my life. Adam knew it, right? Because he was in the garden. Even when he was out of the garden, he knew who created the world and everything in it. I think when we're cognizant of that and we're living with the presence of God in every day, it's no longer just typing on the keyboard or responding to emails or answering the phone. It becomes an opportunity for us to actually work in a way that worships the Lord.
Yeah. I'm going to make a statement that's kind of just summarizing a little bit about what we're saying, and if you guys have something to add, I think it'd be great. The whole idea of work, I think we have seen it as, or if we unconsciously even seen it as a result of the fall. But work isn't sin. Work isn't the result of sin. Work is actually ultimately a gift from God, a call from God, even before the fall. So if work isn't a result of sin, what causes the problem. Here's what I read. I'll leave it a quote unnamed. I don't remember who said it. Work isn't a result of sin. Frustration is. So the result of sin is our frustration with work. I don't know that I always want to believe that's true. All right. So is every time I get frustrated because I've got to work, is that a result of the fall? I don't know. What do you think?
I think there are people that are exhausted and are working hard,
Fatigue.
working their fingers to the bone. And we have to make a distinction between exhaustion and laziness in some of those areas, because there are people who, man, they're burnt out or they've been through some things that we need to have a little bit of grace toward, and I know the Lord does. So we're not talking about people who are working themselves to the bone and then need a break and we'll probably talk about that in a minute as far as Sabbath and what God kind of models for us and the importance of that. But yeah, no, I think you're dead on that. Yeah, for sure.
And this second statement, work is not a curse to endure, but a calling to steward well. That's kind of an overarching summary of that second point. I'm going to go and segue into the third point, and then this is really where Pat just mentioned Sabbath. I think this is such a missed opportunity, because that third outcome to work for us really should be that we work for God's pleasure. And we don't think of Sabbath as pleasing God. I think most of the time we've got all kind of mixed emotions. I'll let you guys kind of elaborate on some of those, but a lot of different feelings about what Sabbath is, how Sabbath is defined, how we should view Sabbath, all of that. But when we think of pleasing God with our work, obviously excellence comes to mind. I think that's the immediate thought anyway, is that, well, that means we got to work hard. It means we got to work, to give our everything we got. I mean, that's kind of my makeup. So I naturally think drive, go, as fast as you can, do all you can while you're breathing, and that is perhaps one side of the coin. The other side of that coin, though, is Sabbath. So how does Sabbath play into pleasing God with our work? Because it's like the finishing of work. That's really, I think, the outcome of it. It's not resting from work is actually not because you're tired. Go back to it's not even because you're frustrated. God was neither.
Right. In
Genesis chapter 1 and 2, God didn't get frustrated. God didn't get tired, but yet he rested on the seventh day. So how does Sabbath, Pat, why don't you start? How is that the completion of, or the exclamation point of our work?
Man, God modeled that for us, and I think we've abused Sabbath to think Sabbath should mean my life should be easy. Sabbath is a rest after a week of work. I mean, it really is a moment for us to ponder and worship and allow our thoughts to recenter on what Christ has called us to on this earth. I think we can get busy kind of getting into the weeds, and if you never stop, you burn out. God's modeled to us as we know our own limitations, physically, mentally, everything else. Sabbath gives us that cycle and that routine to say, I know there are times when I'm going to have to pull back and I'm going to have to rest, and I'm going to have to allow my mind to reset. I'm going to have to allow a spiritual reset in my life so I can remember what I'm doing this for. I can remember the mission God's called me to. I can remember why I'm doing this. But God obviously modeled that for us too, even though he didn't need it, like you said.
Yeah. God has given us reminders. So baptism is a reminder of the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ when you see it every time. And then the Lord's Supper, he just said as often. So we forget, and God knew it. He said, so in case you forget, I'm going to give you these things that you need to do to remind you of himself. And Sabbath, I believe, is one of those reminders because he didn't even build us to work 7 days. He didn't build us that way. And so on that day, moment, whatever it is, that rest is needed, and is required, it is a reminder to us that when we're in Sabbath, it's not just to lay back and do nothing. It is to remind us God was the one that did this anyway. And it really to re-center us going into Monday or whatever day it might be, going into that next day and saying, all right, God, I need your help for this week. Yeah. It's almost just recalibration as a reminder that this is all God's work. I mean, going back to chapter 1, it was all God doing the work. And then in chapter 2, it was all God telling Adam what to do. And then Adam's like, okay, name the animals. All right, that's a goat.
Yeah. I don't know how much this will relate to everybody else, but I'm kind of a little confession time. I feel like my high school years and all of that played into kind of shaping me and my work ethic in a positive way to some degree, because I was not the ideal exemplary student. I was not at all. And I think that I can remember my freshman English teacher saying words to me like, "You'll never amount to anything. You're
Wow.
just, lazy bum, whatever."
Great teacher.
Yeah, well,
Such an encouragement.
terrible student. I deserved it probably,
Maybe-
although maybe in a different way.
maybe a little push, but
She
sorry to
shouldn't
interrupt
have
your
been
story.
that. But yeah, it was very, very, it's very shaping for me what I thought of myself at the time. And I was very unmotivated. All that to say, got out of high school, called to ministry. Part of why I went probably the educational route I went as far as I went is because felt like I had something to prove. If I'm being real honest, felt like I've been trying to prove something my whole adult life, and even acknowledging that is probably more challenging than you might think. But when I was preparing these thoughts and typed this out, I literally just thought about how convicting it was, because Sabbath reminds us we don't work to prove our worth. That's not how God made work.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm just going to tell you, man, I've been guilty of looking at it that way. If I'm not careful, I can totally think I'm still proven, and God rest her soul, she's already passed, but I can still think in my mind I'm trying to prove my ninth grade teacher wrong. And that's crazy for a grown man to say, but I think it's easy for all of us to think, yeah, our work is a demonstration and a proof to how much we're worth. And that's why when sometimes somebody says, what do you do? Men ask that question more than women. And I think the reason is because we identify what we do with who we are.
Yeah.
And so that here's the second point. We work from our identity, not for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think men especially, I'm not letting women off the hook, all right? So feel the conviction just as much if you're guilty. But I think it's easy for us to be identified by what we do and think, oh, yeah, I'm a doctor.
Especially if we do it
Because
well.
I do doctor stuff.
Yeah.
Or, I'm a contractor, and so it's the perfection of my building is what defines who I am. And it's such a fine line because, we've just talked about we should do everything for the glory of God. We should do everything with excellence. But I guess respond to this whole idea of where's the line of the motivation for why we're doing it? Are we doing it for the glory, for the, hey, pat myself on the back, for the affirmation of, yes, I'm proving that I'm not what they said I was. I'm proving that I'm worth something. Where's the trap there? And have y'all ever felt that?
Well, I think we feel it every day. I know I do.
Yeah.
I think the struggle is, even especially in ministry, you can get to a place where you go, man, I'm killing it. I'm doing awesome. And then God humbles you and reminds you how much is not in your own hands, how much it does depend on him. And I love that you pointed that out about Sabbath. Sabbath is a reminder of, hey, this isn't about me anyway. This is about the Lord. It's a reminder of saying this is our time to bring that to God and to lay it at his feet, because it's easy to make yourself the center of the story.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I won't let you confess alone. I would confess that over the years in pastoral ministry, that because it's closely tied to spiritual. It is. Our work is spiritual. Then my identity has many times been the work.
Yeah.
And so when I rest, it's almost like I feel guilty because I'm not in my identity. But when it becomes a relationship, I believe the two things happen that if we really view this right, that we could really work hard, really hard, and enjoy it. And when we do rest, we didn't need as much rest as we would have with a different attitude. Yeah. And if it's not our idea, if we have a relationship with God, we'll enjoy the work. And so the Sabbath, we'll enjoy the Sabbath more too. And the other thing is, if thinking about workaholics, people that on the other side of the spectrum, a lot of times when you work so much, there is a possibility of the work being everything. And so what happens is everything around you suffers, right? So when it suffers and then you go ahead and stop, there's nothing to stop to.
Yeah.
You just only have your work. But if there is a balance between I'm doing this for the glory of God and I need to work hard with excellence and but enjoy it because it's God's work, then when you rest, you will not have burned bridges, interrupted world. You'll be able to rest with family, with whatever it is, and even bring your family along with work.
Well, I think in Matthew chapter 7, right? He says, there are plenty who are going to say, Lord, Lord, and they won't enter the kingdom of heaven. They said, did we not prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, done mighty works? Wow. And Jesus will say, depart from me, I never knew you. I think it's a shame if we start to find our identity in our work rather than in the work of the cross.
That's good.
And so the beauty for us is that, man, we find our identity and our hope not in the work of our own hands. We find our identity and our hope only in what Jesus has done for us.
This is such a tension to manage because, we're almost like arguing both ends of the spectrum. Our work should not be seen as a burden.
Right.
It's a blessing. Our jobs, the occupations God gives to us, should not be seen as a dread. I mean, these are gifts that God has given us to provide for our family, to represent Him well in the public square. So it is how we engage the culture Monday through Friday for most people. Some people work 7 days a week. I mean, but this really is the other side of the coin. Work, when we work without Sabbath, then work becomes an idol. And for some people, I think a lot of people can relate to that. Other people are like, man, I ain't worshiping work, right? I can't even and it's just some of that's personality, some of it's motivation, like we talked about from whatever experience we had. But both extremes are wrong. We shouldn't dread work. We shouldn't hate work. Although sometimes I know it's a challenge for some people, and maybe that is God. I pray God gives you another place to work, another opportunity to work and represent Him. But the other side is we also don't want to make work an idol. We don't want productivity to replace trust.
Right.
And that is, again, a very big challenge for people wired like me.
Yeah.
Because productivity, when I'm going home and Amy says, how was your day? I literally answer based on how productive the day was. It was a very productive day. Or, I didn't get a lot done. So if I didn't get a lot done, wasn't that good of a day. Well, I acknowledge that's not a great way to measure worth of a day. But yet, so I have to look through the lens of I need Sabbath. I need to recognize Sabbath. And here's the convicting part for people like me. Rest is an act of worship that declares this. God is the ultimate provider, not me.
Yeah.
And I think when I can't embrace Sabbath, if I can't stop the wheels turning, if I can't disengage to allow Him to be the major focus of everything that I'm thinking and doing. And it's hard in ministry, like you said, Stephen, because everything we do, we could say, is working for Him. So switching those gears enough to kick it in neutral and say, God, I'm going to demonstrate to you that I really do trust you enough to not have to make it happen right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, what would you say to somebody on either end of that spectrum? We'll kind of both of y'all respond to this. Somebody who's like, man, I'm miserable in my job. I don't like work. And then the other person who's like, man, I am probably guilty of worshiping work. It's an idol in my life. How can they respond?
Well, I think Chick-fil-A has showed us the importance of taking a day off, right? I mean, how much money could they make after church on a Sunday morning, genuinely?
Unbelievable.
And yet they take that day off and they're doing very well. And I think we could always make another dollar. We could always work another hour, work another day, and taking the time to pause and say, I got to realize what's important in my life. Nobody at the end of their life, we've always heard this, for our whole lives, nobody at their deathbed says, I wish I had more emails to respond to, right? Or I wish I had more time at my desk at the office. We start to realize what's truly important in our lives. And so for the people who are either overworking or the people who are trying to take shortcuts to earn a quick buck because they don't want to work, I think for us, what we have to say is let's reset our mind and our hearts to realize the purpose and the reason why we are here is to worship the Lord and to draw others to Him. And if what you're doing, if you're cutting yards and that's an opportunity to worship the Lord and actually have that interaction with other people to do that to the glory of God, But if you're a doctor and you're a neurosurgeon, use that platform for the glory of God. Whatever you have is your platform. Don't waste it.
That's good. Don't waste it.
Yeah, that's why I don't think that anybody that has a passion and a drive to work all the time. I grew up, my mom and dad especially my mom, works all the time. I mean, all the time, just always working. And so I grew up that way and really appreciate it. I mean, appreciate seeing that. I don't think that you should take away the passion of how much you want to work. Like you say workaholic, but I don't think you should take that away. It should be the perspective of I need to know why I'm doing this and who is in charge of it, because if I don't do it, it'll still get done. God can still do the work.
Right.
And then have time for rest. I mean, on that end. On the end of people that don't want to work, you're missing an opportunity. You're missing an opportunity for God to use you and do something great.
That's good.
I was thinking about my grandmother. Speaking of family, the greatest illustration I've seen of work is worship. Mom told me about my grandmother. They were members at a smaller church in the mountains, and she would bake the wafers or the bread crackers for the Lord's Supper. And Mom said in the kitchen, she would hear her, and she wouldn't let anybody else in the kitchen at the time because she wanted it to be just right. And she would put them on a sheet, and when she would take them out, she would cut them, and if they weren't perfect, she'd do it again. It was just something to her. But she would say, as she was doing it, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. So she was loving what she was doing, understanding what God had given her to do. And just that little task was a blessing to her, and then it blessed others by her making it and passing it along.
That's cool.
And that I want that heart. That's the heart I want with everything I do.
That's good.
I don't always do that, but
Well, guys, I think we've adequately expounded on the on the subject. Let me just go ahead and challenge you guys. Everybody's kind of tuning in today and joining us for this service. Man, I would stay connected on social media as best you can if we have power through this storm. If you need help, don't hesitate to reach out via email to any of our team. If you call the church office, someone will check that voicemail even if the office is closed. So if you need help, let us know. We're here for you, and we'll do everything we can, humanly possible, to get to you if there's a need. We're in this thing together. We're faith family. We love you guys. And also, just make sure as far as like scheduling things, if you ever need to know what's canceled, what's coming up, when are we having this, we'll always make sure and communicate that via social media and email to everyone. So, man, we love you guys. Stay safe, and we hope that we'll see you next Sunday as we turn again to Culture War series and see what God has for us. We love you guys.